Hello everyone, in today's video we will be setting up several UIs. This includes a main UI and two different types of pause menus. To make things slightly more interesting, we will be using the module UI component for Game Creator. So in order to achieve all of this, we will need simply Unity and Game Creator itself. If you want to use the more advanced features I'll be showing, you will need UI components for Game Creator as well. What I will be showing here is one of the ways to do things, but there are many other ways. The goal here is to create a base from which we can expand upon if needed. So let's dive in. So before setting up our scene, I'm going to show you what the end result will look like. So we have an updated player UI here with a minimap. We will have the option for a dynamic pause menu that actually functions in the world space, and we'll be setting up a regular UI as well and a main menu. Now the regular UI will look like this. It will have a resume, a load function, and a go to main menu. Now this main menu simply loads a different scene, what it's supposed to do, but this will give you some ideas on how to use load scene in general. Now we'll be able to customize our character a tiny bit as well with some interesting add-on features. If you would have had hair or eyes, I would have changed those colors, but our character is quite simple. No inventory yet. That's something I'll be looking at in a different tutorial simply because it will take quite a bit of time. We have the load save feature obviously, and we have our main menu. Now our main menu again is really simplistic. It will have a start that just simply loads up the scene. We will have a load feature that loads up a last save. I will be doing a different tutorial on an actual complete save load system setup, but it takes a bit of time, so it's better for a different video. We have two other different interesting components here. Dynamic 3D character. Mine isn't doing any animations, but obviously he could. Displaying in the main menu, and videos playing in canvases. Now if you've seen games like Call of Duty, etc., they like to promote their stuff in small videos. This video is showing the very early stage of my own VR game. It's not looking that great, but it's early stage, so just ignore that for now. So that's everything we'll be doing in today's video. This will take a bit of time, but it's the base which you will need for basically any game. So in order to set up our pause menu, etc., I will be reusing our character shooter scene. This is because this already had the player UI you just saw, so I'm not going to recreate a character UI already set up in another tutorial. So let's just reuse that one, and I'm going to duplicate the scene just for safety, just to make sure I don't mess anything up. Let's call this 01 Advanced UI. There we go. So let's open this up, and this will basically be the exact same. Now I'm going to create an empty here and call this user interfaces. Explains why we have the short UI. It's a really long name. Let's drag that up a bit. I'm going to drag in the near death as well, because that's a UI and I just want to keep all of this clean. Let's rename this to player UI. There we go. Now I'm not creating a mobile game, so there won't be an on-screen button to activate our pause menu here. So I'll just use a really simple trigger. Now let's add our canvas, so go UI and canvas. There we go. Now let's switch to 2D just to make sure it's actually correctly set up. There we go, so disable this, Yeah, and there we go. We have our UI set up. So let's call this pause menu. There we go. So like I mentioned, I'm just going to use a really simple on start here to actually activate our pause menu. So I'm going to add the action here because it's slightly cleaner having, not having any actions in this folder. There we go. And this will set active our pause menu. Now, I don't want to show my player UI while in my pause menu, so I'm going to be disabling the player UI when I enter my pause menu. And I like my game to actually stop when I hit pause, so that's why I'm adding change time scale. I'm going to set that to 0. Now, if you're making a online game or a game with always online, always on, or however you call that, like The Division, for example, you will actually set this to, you will not be using this. So only use this if you actually want to pause the game. There we go. So here's our pause menu. Now I'm going to add a simple background. Now I know this can be done in a different way as well. I just like to do it like this. Really simple. Going to make it black. And we're going to make it transparent. So it's going to be 25. There we go. That's our background. Now let's start by adding one button. Now it will definitely not look it will definitely not look exactly the same as before. It's really hard to just replicate that. I don't like rounded corners, so let me just grab a simple square sprite here. And our normal color is going to be, so let's make values simple. It's going to be about, yeah, like this. That's fine. I don't actually want that to be a child, so let's just call this background. And this is going to be our resume button. So let's make the text white. And let's make this, not 20 is a bit much. 18, that's fine. So there it is, really simple way to set up a button. Now when highlighted, let's make it a bit darker. That's a bit too much. When selected, it's actually going to be really similar to this one, and that was set at 50, so let's set this at 80, just for it to be a bit darker. And once we press it, that's all fine. I'm not going to change any of this, but obviously you can change this to whatever you want. Now we're going to make sure we can actually run game creator functions when pressing that button. So just add the component actions, drag it in here, and here we want to go to actions and execute. Now, instead of actually setting up events, which are already a great tool but still limited, we are going to use game creator for everything based on the on click. Just a lot easier. Now let's add our timescale again. Let's add our set active, duplicate this. So once we hit resume, what do we want to happen? We want our player UI to be active again, and we want our pause menu not to be active. Really simple, really straightforward. Time resumes and it will switch between the UIs. That's it. Let's call this resume. I'm going to duplicate this, call it load loss save. drag this below. There you go. Now I'm not going to perfectly align everything. I just, want to set this up. This will not be about how to make something pretty, but make it functional. Load loss save. There you go. Now, for load loss save, we want time to be active again. So if you don't do this, it will definitely load your lost save game, but it will not set time back to active. So that's what we want. We can actually remove these because it will actually remember what UIs were active. And let's hit load lost game. There you go. Really simple. No advanced, save system yet, but just the basics. Now let's duplicate that again. Let's drag it here. Maybe it was actually telling me that this was the same distance. Doesn't look like it, but fine. Now let's only remove load lost game and let's add load scene. And this will be our main menu. So we haven't created that yet, but I'm just going to call it this. Really important thing here, no spaces in your scene names if you want to be able to add them to your build settings. Now these build settings are necessary in order to switch scenes while testing, but also when you actually build your game. So this is really important, no spaces in the names of your scenes. It really bugs me that it's not perfectly aligned, but oh well, whatever. And where's our background? There you go. So really, really simple. Yeah, that's better. Still not great, but better. Anyway, really simple. Resume, load save, and main menu. So let's correctly call that main menu. Perfect. So we have our 3 buttons fully functional and they will do exactly what they need to do. Now I'm going to duplicate resume again because it already had those nice set active actions, which will be we'll be using that for our tabs. Now let's call this first one, I think it was overview. Let's rename that to overview. There we go. Perfect. And we'll be adding 1 child here. Create empty, there we go. And let's call these overview let's call this overview content. Yeah, there we go. So here this is where we're going to drag in all of the content we want our tab to show once we press it. There we go. And I'm going to already duplicate these twice. There we go. And another overview, another one here. Seems about right. This is going to be character because here we'll be adding character customization options later on. There we go. And the last one is going to be inventory. Now that's a bit of a tease because we're not actually going to do that yet, but I already want to set it up for when we go over the inventory tutorial. So let's change our text here to inventory, and let's do the same with the character one. There we go. Now I'm going to add a simple image yet again. So let me just add UI image, and this will be the background for all of my content. Yeah, there we go. Now I'm going to be actually using the same. Oh, I'll actually be using the same background for all of them. Simply, I won't be changing images, so there we go. Now let's add a simple text saying this is our pause menu. Let's just say pause. That's fine for now. Pause. I don't want this to be centered. Let's just make sure overflow is on in case our text becomes too big. 50 might, yeah, that's way too much. 30. There we go. That's about right. Going to add a simple image, just a little icon, not necessary. Oh, let's scale this properly. There we go. And I think it was menu. Yeah, there we go. So there we go. We have our basic setup. Now let's add those actions to our tabs. So we don't need a timescale. What we do need is once we press on overview, we want overview content to be visible. And we want character content to not be visible, and we want inventory to not be visible. Now, if you want to be able to display two things at a time when pressing tabs, just change this around, but that's about it. Now we're going to do the same here. So remove this. And there we go. Overview, inventory are not visible. And for inventory, we have inventory visible and overview and character are not visible. There we go. Really simple. So let's add some text in our overview content tab. There we go. Let's drag it here. Beautiful. Now I'm not going to be adding images, etc. Really simple. If you want to do add anything else to your tabs, just make sure they're part of the overview content parent. That's all you need to do. So this is our overview tab. Beautiful. Now let me duplicate this and drag it to all of them. And we'll drag it. So now overview no longer needs to be visible. Character, what is the text we want? We'll be changing colors here later. Perfect. Character no longer needs to be visible either. And sorry about that, but not in this video. So there we go. But all of the tabs are functional. Everything will work. So let's actually test this out. I think this should be our fully functioning pause menu. Now I really hope I did everything right. So let's see. And I didn't, I activated the wrong ones. No, I did not actually. So let's see. Why is it activating? Oh, this is, apologies for that. So we had our on start actually switch to the pause menu and turn off our player UI and pause time. So this needs to be on key up, so we don't want any long presses here. We just want you to press the button once and those actions will happen. So let's hit play. Beautiful. And this pauses. So this changes our tabs. Absolutely wonderful. That all works. Resume will resume the game, and if we hit again, this will actually load our save game, and time continues. So that's it for our pause menu. That's all set up. So let me create that main menu I was actually referring to in my load settings. So where do we have scene? There we go. 01 main menu is the name I gave the action, so that's what we're going to call it. Now I am quite happy with the base look of this, so I'm going to be cheating a bit. I'm going to copy the background, resume, load last save, and the text, and there we go. I don't need the tabs for my main menu, so I'm just going to be copying these things over, and that's about it. So let's save everything. So here we have our main menu. So we're still in 2D mode, that's why it looks like this. So let's add our canvas. Where we go, canvas. Well, we don't really need to call this anything really, but I'm just going to call it main menu because we won't be using anything else here. Let's copy all of this in and make sure they're part of the main menu. Now, because I'm using HDRP, I unfortunately need to add the sky and fog volume because if I don't, changing the background to completely black will completely, well, basically have this effect really, which I was hoping wouldn't happen, but oh well, it apparently still seems to happen. Let me just disable the directional light. There we go. That helps as well. Now we had pause, so we're going to call this menu, and let's change this image to a different, again, I'm not going for any design prizes here, it's just the look. Now the normal color, because our background is completely black, needs to be slightly different. This was completely accidental, but yeah, that works. Why doesn't it work now? That's strange. Anyway, I use this. So let me drag this in. There we go. And there we go. So main menu is going to have a different function. So we're not going to use main menu. We're going to do quick game. This function will not work in the editor. As a heads up, you can't quit the editor like this. But what we're going to do will actually work if you build the game. So let's just call this quick game. We're going to keep load lost save, and we're going to rename resume to start. I know a normal menu will actually have a resume function, which basically is our load lost save function here. But because I didn't set up any advanced save features, load and save features, I'm just going to keep the simple one load button, and that's it. Now let's have start. We don't need the whole time elements anymore. It's no longer necessary because we set all of the correct time elements up in our pause menu. So let's just load a scene here, and we call this 01 advanced UI. There we go. So this will do the same as main menu does in the other one. You can add a save option as well, so that when in your pause menu you would go to press a main menu, it would automatically save the game if that's something you want. And you can do the same with quick game if you want to save their game. I wouldn't mess with that, but you know, in theory you could. So this is it. Really simple. Quick game, exit the game. Now load last save doesn't need to have the resume on time, but it does need to load the last game again. And there we go. I don't need this one. It's just going to be a really simple plain background. There we go. Now let's go to build settings. Yes, I deleted that. That is correct. And let me remove that as well. So I know it already appeared here. That was because of some testing. But basically what you need to do is add open scenes to your build settings. Now, let me just see if this all displays properly. Yeah, there we go. The highlighting isn't amazing, but you know, it works. I'll be testing that out in a bit. First, I actually want to open our advanced UI again. Yeah, save everything here. And we want to add our advanced UI to the build settings as well. There we go. Now, if you don't do this, nothing will actually load. You can't switch to games in your editor. And obviously for build settings, for actually building your game, you would need it as well. Now let's hit play. We already tested out our pause menu to its full extent, so all of this works. Resume works, load last save works. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to resume, actually save here. There we go. And then open up our main menu. And this is our main menu, so our different scene. Start will just open that scene again, so let's see if you can cross-save between scenes. And you can, that's it. So our game is loaded again. Perfect. So that's the really basic pause and main menu. Now I know in the beginning of the video I showed something that looked a lot more interesting with a compass, actually a mini-map showing the enemy positions, everything on the map really, some interesting character customization options, and a way better looking main menu. But for that we need the UI components module, so that's the second part of this video. Now, in order to set up the dynamic menu I displayed in the beginning of the video, you will not need that module, but I'm actually going to set it up at the complete end of this video, simply because I want all of the menus to be completely done before I actually go ahead and duplicate our pause menu. So the UI components module is a unofficial module for Game Creator. However, it works exactly the same, so you load it up just like all of the other modules, and it is completely integrated. So it's really cool. One of the best features, which is the reason I bought it, is the mini map. So we'll be setting that up first. So what you do is you go to this folder, you import it and go to prefabs. So once you're in prefabs, let's select that minimap and let's drag it in. And there is our minimap. Now it's not really as simple as that, so you need to do an additional setting. So I want to make sure it's part of my player UI, because when I hit pause I want the minimap to be disabled as well. I'm going to drag this here because I want it to be in the down right corner. So minimap showing, great. So what we'll be doing next is we need a trigger that enables our minimap. So let's just add a trigger. I'm going to do on start. Going to add the trigger to user interfaces just to keep everything clean and together. We have new actions, and what we're going to add here is display minimap. There you go. You have a full map option as well, which is really cool. So, set up a different trigger, M for example, hit M and the map opens. Really cool, full map. So you need the mini map in order for the full map to work anyway. So just follow along. Panel mini map and raw texture map. So the full map, well, don't need to do that yet, but if you want to set it up, great. Mine is going to be in the bottom right. Don't really know what this does, but just in case. Field of view, we'll just leave that as is. It shouldn't be too big. A mini map shouldn't be all that powerful. And let's hit play. And there we have our fully functioning minimap. It really is that simple. Now, as you can see, it literally shows everything, which is really cool. If you go in the examples folder, which has the minimap in there, it actually shows enemies as dots and friendlies as green dots, which is really cool. And you can make it a lot more interesting than displaying the default. By default, I'm not going to do that. You can change the way the minimap looks, obviously. So in the beginning of the video, I had a different look, which is simply just a sprite, and you just load those up so a sprite for the pointer and a different sprite for the frame. So let me see if, yeah, there we go. So this was my marker, really basic, but there you go. That's how simple it is. So you can just load up your own sprites. So really cool. So that's the minimap. Let's head over to our color picker, which is another really interesting feature. So the color picker basically allows us, let's open up our character content. The color picker allows us to manually set colors of objects in real time, which is really cool. So if you have character customization in your game, for example, this is a really easy way to change skin tones, eye color, hair color, color of clothes, whatever you want, really. So again, we have this really simple prefab already set up. I think I displayed system info as well, which literally just drag in the prefab. I'm not going to do that now. Don't really need system info. And I'm going to drag the color picker component into our scene. There we go. And I'm going to make it a child of the character content. And we're gonna have it here. Now I'm not sure if something imported incorrectly for mine, but I just had to select the sprite again. So let's just color wheel palette, and this is the selector. And again, the thing that's really nice about this is you can change the look of it as well, instead of just having the basic preset look, but they're there, so you already have something. So let's open up those basic images, and then we have our color picker. So this will require a bit more steps to set everything up. So we are going to set everything up correctly, obviously, because here you'll be able to actually decide what colors you want to change. So I'm going to add a trigger in here just to keep everything together. It's just a lot simpler. So let's add a trigger here. There we go. And this is going to be a on variable change. So this color picker uses variables the way Game Creator does. So like I mentioned, everything is pretty integrated into Game Creator. So let's just call this the trigger. There you go. Don't want this to be a child of that. Let's just keep it here. So that's great. And inside of the trigger, I'm going to set up the actions as well as the variables. So let me already create Game Creator variables, local variables. There we go. So it's a local variable. I'm just going to call it colors, and it will change color. So yeah, quite straightforward. Not sure if you should change it. I'll just keep it as is. So that's it. We have our local variable set up. So what we're going to do next is in our trigger, we're going to actually call that local variable. So local variable, local variable. So yeah, straightforward. That's it. Now we need to call those local variables again in our action. So let's set those up because if we are going to, if there's a change in the variable, we want something to happen. Now these actions are going to decide what will change color. So you can toggle between this if you want to change, several colors for several objects. I don't really, so we're just going to call the Game Creator change color function. And we are going to change the color of our players' joints. So there we go, joints. Now this is a bit annoying. Again, it's an HDRP related issue, but the default HDRP doesn't have a color the traditional way. So the Game Creator default color function won't work on the default shader, which is a bit annoying, but there's always downsides when using HDRP. So I'm pretty sure I had there we go, scenes, and no, not samples. I created a material just for this. There we go. So our character joints is going to use this material. So it's an unlit, but basically it needs to have a color option. It's really annoying if you're using HDRP. If you're not using HDRP, you can completely skip this and it will just work by default. So just a quick heads up if you are using HDRP. Now its joints by default were black, so we're just going to keep them black. Now let's go back to our actions. So what are our actions going to do? They are going to change the color of this game object, and they are going to do it with the local variable we are creating. And it's colors. Did I do that here? I'm not really sure. No. Colors, perfect. Now our color picker component will need to be able to call on this as well. So it is going to be a local variable, and there we go. Now you can set up global variables, obviously. I'm just going to use a basic local variable, but that's all the color component really does. So if I did everything correctly, that should be it. Let's disable the pause menu and re-enable that player UI. There we go. So we have our minimap with our custom pointer. Nothing fancy, but it works. Let's hit pause again. Let's open up the character, and we changed his joints, and that's it. So the cool thing about this is real time, which is something I really like. Real time character customization is something I would want in my game anyway. So really cool. Obviously, there's a lot more you can do with this if your character is slightly more interesting than mine. But this is already a really great start. So we set up. We set this up for our character, so our pause menu is all great. Now let's head back to our main menu and make our main menu slightly more interesting as well. So I'm just going to save and open up our main menu. There we go. So for our main menu, we'll be setting up displaying of a 3D character module, which is pretty cool. And we are going to display a video. Now, I am just going to use a basic module, character model. You can use an animated one that actually, is doing stuff. I'm just using basic characters, so I'm not, I'm going to cheat and actually just going to copy the existing one I had. I just want to be clear here, just drag in whatever character model you want. So, drag in your own, drag in a bird. It doesn't really matter. Just a character model. I'm just going to paste in the one I was using before. So it just needs to be a basic character model, any single one. So I cheated because it's the fastest way to find one. But have it animated, don't have it animated, completely up to you. Just a basic character model, nothing special. So you won't be seeing it here. That's what we're actually going to be setting up. So in order to do this, we're going to open up our main menu and we're going to add in a panel. UI, where are you? Panel, there we go. Now this panel is really big. Don't need it to be that big. Perfect. That's our panel. I'm going to make our panel completely invisible. There we go. So our panel will have a UI raw image. Now, don't forget about this raw image one. It's something we'll be using again. Going to make it about this size. That seems about right. So next up, what we are going to do is we are going to set up the animated model. So in order to do this, we are simply going to display it, and we're going to use a trigger again. Now you need to use a trigger for most of the UI components. I'll just be using a onStart here. In order to make things a bit easier to see, I'm just going to actions, there we go. I will just simply be using the actions in this screen. I don't need to see all of this. There we go. It will be an onStart. Let me remove this, too many folders otherwise. Let's just call on these actions. So this action will be display 3D model on canvas. Well, name says it all. So this is the raw image we set up. We are going to be displaying this character or whatever character you dragged in, just as long as the root of the character looks exactly like this, so it has the animator. Now what we're going to do next is set the settings. So our character needs to have a visible layer, so you need to set a layer for your character. So I will use companion AI. No specific reason. It's because that's the one I set up for this character. Create your own, use whatever. Honestly, it doesn't really matter as long as those layers match. That's it. I'm not going to invert anything, so I'm just going to set 30 and 30 here because I know that works because I played around with it, but you can play around with all of these settings. Now, because I am using HDRP as per usual, it creates, you know, some minor complications with lighting. So I had to fiddle around a bit to actually find something that worked for me. But to make things even better, the developer chose to add a updated. He gave me an updated script to make sure it actually functioned for HDRP while I was playing around with it. So really cool. That's going to be in the update as well. So there we go. This is all set up. I'm pretty sure this should actually be it. Now you have a couple of options here, so you can have him rotate when you drag. I only want to drag him on his x-axis, but you can set whatever. But it's a really cool way to be able to, you know, inspect models, for example. So I'm just going to use the Call of Duty example again. You can actually select every gun in the game in the menu and inspect them. So, you know, this would basically allow you to do the same thing. In the example, he actually uses it for character selection. So another really cool way to use it. I'm just going to use it just to display a model, 3D model in a menu, just like the Division does it. So I'm not really sure I set it up correctly. I just want to test it out, but I did. Okay, there we go. Perfect. So yeah, that's it. Mine is not auto rotating, but you know, you can set it up however you want it. But it's a really cool way to not have a flat UI, but actually have a 3D UI. And there's a lot of ways to use this. I'm just going to keep it really simple. Now, next up, what we're going to do is we're going to set up another panel for our video. So let me right click, go to UI, panel again. This is going to be, I want it to be aligned for no specific reason whatsoever. There we go. I mean, that's really small. Okay, there we go. And it's no longer aligned. Anyway, so this is where the video will be. So just like with the 3D model, all we need to do is just add a raw image to it. This image is the one deciding how big the video will be, by the way, not the panel. I'm not really sure you even need to resize the panel. It's just something I prefer to do. And here what we're going to do is we're going to look up a play, or is it add video? I'm just going to type video. What is it? Add video to canvas. So let me drag in my video. Where is it? There we go. Short video. Go back to the main menu. So I'm going to drag in my video. So this is a local one, but you can also set up a, you know, choose a online video. I'm just going to use this. And this was the one for just making sure. Yeah, okay, that was the correct one. Didn't name anything. And that's it. It will place the video here. Now you will need to add this as well, so you have different different functions here. So add video, pause video, play, remove, resume, stop. So imagine using this video feature for a tutorial, you know, in-game tutorial, which, you know, games like Gears of War do. This is something, these functions are something you will need to be able to call upon. So that's why it's, you know, great to have it all in here. I'm just going to be looping a video of my own game. Let's just do here. Now we want the target to be the same raw image again. So let's just drag that in. So this is what decides what plays. Playback speed is going to be normal and loop is going to be normal. Don't want to start at a specific frame, but it's nice to have, I guess. Now let's hit play. And there we go. We have our main menu, play a video, and have our 3D character. Now I know there's a lot more interesting things you can actually do with this, but I wanted to keep it simple. The video is already long enough as it is. But basically it's just, you know, drag and drop for most things. So let's go to our scene that we set up. Great. Hit pause, and there we go. And we have our mini map, we have our color customization all set up. Great. So that's it for the UI components. Now that my menu is actually done, I'm going to show you how to make this pause menu in our advanced UI. So let me open it up first. Yeah, save. Going to show you how to make that dynamic. Now, I want to give a warning here. Dynamic UIs, in my opinion, look really cool, but obviously they can create some complications. There's no simple overlay that can mess with things. Can't mess with things. There's actually going to be an object in the world space. So fair warning. You know, it might not be the smartest thing to do. I think it looks really cool. I want to have it, so that's why I'm going to show it to you. So for the last part of the video, we'll be setting up our pause menu. So let's just duplicate this pause menu. I'm going to hit 2D just for a second, just to make sure we actually have it. Where is our pause menu? Pause menu. There we go. It's here, great. Now I'm going to change this to world space. Now it will still be here. So yes, that will mean we will have to make it a whole lot smaller. So now you think that would be small enough, but really, really isn't. So we need to make all of this really small. Now I played around with this last time, so I know the size. It was 8 by 450. I know the size will works for me, but you can, you know, obviously scale it to whatever you want. We're just going to drag that here. Now let's focus on it. So yes, this will still be the exact same UI. But this time it will display in the world, which is really, really nice. Well, in my opinion, it's really nice. I mean, I like that in games. So yeah, it's about here. I think I rotated it a bit as well. So rotation, I think it was about 6, 5.8, 5.9. Yeah, it's about right. Going to drag it in the position I knew worked for me when it was in the player. 2.5. Now this is actually unfortunately not the position I had it in. So let's just, you know, ignore those positions for now, and actually make it part of our character. There we go. And it's part of our character, and it was about here. I'm really not sure that's correct, and I'm pretty sure it's actually not. So let's just do it here. Now, I don't need to see that background, so that's why I made that a separate value. I'm just going to disable the background and drag out that image. There we go. So we don't need the background. If you want the background, then keep the background by all means. There we go. That's our menu. Now it might still be too big. We'll just going to have to give that a try in a bit. So this is our menu. Great, it's in our scene. Now what we are going to do next is we're going to set up a new camera motor. Now the camera motor is going to target our UI. So not sure if it's by default something we can find here. There we go, camera motor, great. Now this can never be something that is turned off, unfortunately. So it needs to be something that is, you know, in the root. Initially I had it part of the menu, but because you can turn off the menu, it will actually mess with the motor. So, you know, don't make it a child of something, just keep it in the hierarchy. We're going to change this to target camera, as the name I gave it already suggests. We're going to change our field of view to 55. So again, these are all values I had last time. You can, you know, mess around with this, see what works best for you. There we go, and it's going to target. So it's going to use, because it's part of the player, it's going to use the player as an anchor, and then it's going to target local, there we go. It's going to target our menu. I'm going to rename this to dynamic pause menu. Sounds really fancy. There we go. And this is going to target that. So that's what the camera will focus on. Now, most likely I will have to try this out a bit because, you know, replicating this exactly is not as easy. So anyway, it's going to target that. That's absolutely great. Now we want, you know, we want to trigger this somehow as well, obviously. So I'm just going to do a really simple trigger on the player. So I'm just going to add a trigger here. You can add that somewhere else. I'm just going to use it here. But basically our trigger is going to create a set of actions. There we go. And what will happen with these actions is we're going to rotate our player. Our player is going to rotate towards that menu as well. There we go, beautiful. It's just to make it slightly more dynamic. You don't have to do this at all. I'm going to give it a wait of 1 second. And what we're going to do is we're going to set active. So we're going to activate our dynamic pause menu again. And we're going to, let's just duplicate this to make things easier. And we're going to turn off that player UI again. So I don't want to see that when we have our pause menu active. Obviously, once all of this is done, we need to change time. Where's time? Time scale, there we go. This needs to be paused again. That's all great. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a camera feature here. So camera. So we're going to change the camera. So let's drag that up. So we're going to change the camera at the beginning of the actions, and we're going to use this one. It will have a transition time of 1 second, so this will look really nice, dynamic, fancy. There we go. Now this resume button needs to do something else. So it needs to hide our dynamic pause menu. It already does. That's wonderful. Nice. I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting something here, but I'm just going to give it a go. Let's just see what happens. Oh yeah, how about actually making this not on start but on press. Key, I think it is key up. There we go. And I'm going to tie it to keep at 9 just to make sure it's not the same button as the escape. for the normal pause menu. So in theory, not really entirely sure, but in theory this should actually be it. So let's play UI is active. There we go. So we still have our normal menu, great. But now when I hit key 9 and it's slightly misaligned here. This actually looks nice. I think my the UI is simply just a bit too big. So let's make it even smaller than we already did. It's going to be quite small now, really, but fine. 0.8. Yeah, that works. Okay. There we go. Yes, this is really small, I know. There we go. Let's see if that works properly. And again, you might have to mess with those values a bit. Anyway, yes, it can be a tiny bit better aligned, but it looks really nice. Looks really, really cool, actually. So yeah, there we go. Now we need to tie it to the camera as well, I think. Not really entirely sure. Let's just drag it in here. There we go. And yeah, that's it. So it will work. It's still an overlay of the camera. So despite being paused, it will still function. So there we go. All functional. And we hit resume, and on resume, our camera is now suddenly completely and utterly messed up. Now, this is because we didn't change the camera back to the other camera, so let's make sure that actually happens. I'm going to activate it. On resume, we need something else to happen. We need the camera to change. So change camera, there we go. I think we can just add it at the end. Going to have that same transition time of 1 second because it looks nice. And we're going to go back to our normal camera motor. Now, once we hit play, we're going to hit 9. Beautiful. Going to hit resume, and it goes back to our normal camera. Now, this looks really dynamic. Personally, I really like it. It's a cool menu. Obviously, you have to keep in mind that because it messes with cameras, it's in the world space. There could be a lot of downsides to this, so that's why I gave it that 1 second. Just want to make sure it all works properly. But yeah, even if your camera is completely wrong. Now, my camera character rotates toward it like this. If you would have put the menu somewhere else, it might rotate differently. But I think this is really cool. It's something you see in games like The Division. Dead Space, I think, started it. Actually have your menus in the world space, which is something I have to do for VR games anyway. So that's why I thought it would be pretty cool to already have a look at that. So that's it. That's our dynamic menu. Now, I know at the beginning of the video I showed the camera was changing as well, which is something I really quickly added. You don't have to do that at all, so you can skip that if you're not interested to know how that happens, but I'm quickly going to show it because I was messing around with the cameras. I thought it would be fun to actually have something drag in like that. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to add a quick, there we go. So let's just call this on start. You can add a trigger to something else. This is simply going to be a on start trigger. You don't have to create a new empty for that. Now this on start is going to have a set of actions. So it's going to set active, there you are. Our player UI, where's our player UI, is going to be inactive when the scene starts. it's going to change camera again, so we need to set that up. So let's do that first actually. I'm just going to keep it in this parent. I know I just told you never to do that, but we're only going to use this once, so you know, it doesn't have to be something that will be used again. Game creator, where is it? Camera motor. Start scene. Let's just make sure I remember this is the actual motor. Start scene motor. There we go. Now this is going to be a different motor. This is going to be a tween camera. There's obviously a lot of different options here. Just going to zoom out a tiny bit. Now the camera is going to start here. Yeah, that's fine. It's going to start here. I'm going to drag it up a tiny bit. There we go. Nice. And it's going to end behind the player. Now it's really annoying that you can't change this for some reason. So our player, what are his values? He is minus, let's just do minus 11 and 21.9. I'm not really sure why you can't just set that here. Yeah, let's just keep it at 24.8. No, I'm not going to change that. And minus 11, and I'm going to just keep it at the same 1.5. There we go. So on start, we are going to disable the player UI. We're going to call out our camera. So let's change camera again. So camera, change camera, there we go. Going to call for this one. There we go. We're going to have a transition time as well of 1 second between, no, this one shouldn't have a transition time. Let's just keep this at 0 actually, because this is when the scene starts, so it doesn't need a transition time. Now I set it to 6 seconds. Going to be nice here and give it an extra second to let it do what it's supposed to do. We're going to change camera again, so let's just duplicate that. It's a bit faster. We're going to go to our standard camera motor. Now we're going to give it a transition time. This way it will look a bit smoother, or dynamic, however you want to call it. And now we're going to activate that player UI again. Apologies for that. There we go. Now, I'm not really sure this is going to work as I want it to, but let's just see what happens. And it kind of does, yeah. Looks pretty much exactly the same as in my video. So, sorry. So this is a really simple way to, add a small transition. Pretty sure GTA San Andreas was one of the first games I saw that do. But it's really cool. It's really simple, and it's just messing with cameras a bit. So I think the important thing here is for all of these basic actions, I'm not setting up any other cameras. I'm just dynamically switching the motors for the same main camera. So a really easy, simple way to not overcomplicate things. So there we have it. Everything exactly as in the start of the video. Some things might look slightly different, alignment, changing some pictures, but it's really cool. It's very interesting to play around with UIs a bit, and definitely I would advise everyone to check out the UI components module. Just like most things game creator related, at the moment of recording, it's on sale. It's part of the spring sale, so I definitely check it out. It's really cool. It's really useful and it allows you to do a lot more. So thanks for watching, and if you like this, please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.